Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1690B, and today's date is October 15th, 2018, and the title of the episode is DECLAS Timed, Foreign Allies Object to DECLAS. What? Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, it looks to me like the deep state is scrambling for a distraction because, remember, the DECLAS is timed for a specific moment in time, and many times before, they thought that the DECLAS was coming and they spent ammunition. This is exactly what they wanted them to do. They don't know exactly when the DECLAS is coming, but we can see the deep state, they're continually pushing a distraction right now, and this has to do with the alleged killing of Jamal Khashoogi. And right now, you can see that a lot of things don't make sense, and they're trying to push a certain agenda. They're trying to get Trump, get Turkey to do something, to kick off some type of an event over this individual. And we're going to be talking about that in just a bit. But first, I wanted to talk about how the FBI has been concealing evidence that directly refutes the Russian collusion problem that they made up. Now, Texas Representative John Ratcliffe said on Sunday that the agency is holding evidence which directly refutes its premise for launching the probe. Now, Ratcliffe noted that the FBI opened its investigation on July 31st, 2016, after receiving information from the Australian government about a conversation that Papadopoulos had on May 10th, 2016, with Alexander Downer, the top Australian diplomat to the UK. Now, Alexander Downer claimed that Papadopoulos revealed Russia had dirt on Hillary Clinton. Now, Ratcliffe, who sits on the House Judiciary Committee, suggested on Sunday that the FBI and Department of Justice poses information which directly contradicts that account. Hypothetically, if the Department of Justice and the FBI have another piece of evidence that directly refutes that directly contradicts that, what you would expect is for the Department of Justice to present both sides of the coin to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to evaluate the weight and sufficiency of that evidence, Ratcliffe said. Instead, what happened here was Department of Justice and FBI officials in the Obama administration in October of 2016 only presented to the court the evidence that made the government's case to get a warrant to spy on a Trump campaign associate. Now, we need to go back a little bit in time here, back to September. Remember, Trump issued an order to declassify the documents on September 17th, and Q told us that it was going to happen on that date. Now, what's very interesting about this is now it's with the Department of Justice, where they're reviewing it. And there are two foreign allies who are asking Trump to keep the whole thing classified. Now, who are these foreign allies? UK and Australia. The question is, how do they know what's in this document? How do they know what it says? Did they get their hands on it, or were they involved in setting all of this up? That's the problem. They are implicated in these documents. They know what they've done. They know that they work with the deep state. They know what was created, what was prepared, what intelligence was handed over, and they know exactly what it's going to say because they're involved in all this. And once the UK and Australia are shown to be involved with all of this, well, this is going to be a bigger problem than they ever expected, because now the people in their countries are going to say, well, wait a minute. You were involved in an election? You were involved in a smear campaign? In the Russian collusion conspiracy that's completely fake? And this is why they're so worried. And remember, the DECLAS is coming. It's timed to a specific moment to catch the deep state completely off guard. We need to go back to 2340 for a minute. And Q put up, this was back October 4th, says DECLAS coming. Narrative shift in full force. UK, Australia assisted rogue elements of the U.S. government to take down a duly elected candidate president. Q. This is why these foreign countries, these allies of the U.S., are trying to stop this also. And what we're seeing right now is a narrative shift in full force. Why? The DECLAS is coming. Now, what happens when this is declassified? A lot more other things are going to come out, and it's called the truth. And all fingers are going to be pointing to Saudi Arabia, Wonderland, where Clinton was involved, she's Alice, and many others with human trafficking and many other things. It's like their base of operation right there. So we see that they're very, very worried about this. Now, something very interesting. Out in Pennsylvania, at a Turkish retreat center, there was a man in dark clothing, in black, around this compound in Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania. And this individual was an unknown man who appeared to be armed and attempted to enter the retreat. But there were guards standing there, and they reacted to the situation with a warning shot in the air, and the person fled. Now, this is very interesting because remember, in this Turkish retreat center is Fethullah Gulen. Now, this is the individual that was blamed for trying to overthrow Erdogan a couple of years ago. And Erdogan wanted the U.S. to extradite him to Turkey, and the U.S. didn't. Now there's this individual there trying to get in and most likely murder this individual Gulen. Now, after all these years, why would Erdogan try to do this now? While there's a problem in his country with a alleged murdered journalist in a Saudi consulate. I mean, let's think about this for a second. So, we're starting to see what is going on here. And the pieces are starting to fit, and this looks like it was a botched mission. So, Jamal Khashoogi was allegedly killed in Turkey in a Saudi consulate. A man shows up in Gulen's compound wearing dark clothing, armed, and guards fired a shot and the person runs off. Now, who was this person? We don't know. And most likely they picked an innocent off the street to try to pull this off. So Trump is out there, and he's saying that he just spoke to the king of Saudi Arabia, who denies any knowledge of whatever may have happened to our Saudi Arabian citizen. He said that they are working closely with Turkey to find answer. I'm immediately sending our Secretary of State to meet the king. And this is a tweet from Trump. So the Saudi king is ordering an open internal investigation into Khashoogi's case. The Saudis and the Turkish authorities are going to be working together to find out what happened. So both of these countries are working together to figure out what happened with this. And the king thanked the Turkish president for welcoming the Saudi government's proposal to form a joint working group to probe the journalist's disappearance, and stressed that no one could undermine the relationship between Turkey and Saudi Arabia. So he just put out the message saying, your plan is not going to work. So right now, Trump is sending Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to Saudi Arabia, then to Turkey. But what's very interesting is that as soon as this incident happened, minutes after it happened, we saw an article in Saudi Arabia that Saudi Arabia would retaliate against any punitive measures linked to the disappearance of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoogi. Now, this is very interesting because as soon as they put this up, all of a sudden, it was taken down. And it looks like it did not come from the king's press pool. It came from outside, someplace else, outside the diplomatic channels. And then it was taken down. Now, why did they do this? Were they trying to push a certain agenda and they realized it wasn't working, so they took it down? Were they found out? But it's very interesting. So right now, there are Turkish authorities inside of the Saudi consulate. They're working together. Now, Trump said something very interesting. He said that maybe rogue killers might have been responsible for Khashoogi's killing. Now, this is very interesting. Rogue killers. Who were the rogue killers? You mean the deep state. The deep state was trying to push something. But we can see there's many different warning flags here when we start to look at all of this. Flag number 1. Jamal Khashoogi, in self-exile, worked for the Washington Post and was hiding behind residency in the U.S. Number 2. The voices behind the U.S. pushed to promote the Jamal Khashoogi story are all aligned in one purposeful ideological direction. Former Obama officials, including John Brennan, Samantha Power, Valerie Jarrett, etc., are all pushing the story in a transparent effort to create division between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, and by extension benefit their Muslim Brotherhood. Number 3, Rubio, Sassy, Flake, Schumer, Mendez, together with the exact same media voices and all the political think tanks who advance the D.C. drumbeat. Number 4, the story is being pushed into the U.S. media outlets by notorious Muslim Brotherhood mouthpiece Khalid Safari. So all of this is being pushed in the same direction by all these individuals repeating the same thing. Now the mainstream media is out there saying that Saudi Arabia is going to admit to killing Jamal Khashoogi while he was being interrogated, and it was a mistake. It was an accident. Now, this is very interesting because the king already told Trump that he didn't do it. The king already ordered an investigation with the Turkish authorities, and now they're going to admit it? Something does not seem right here. It seems like the mainstream media is still trying to push this agenda because, remember, Trump did say that the punishment would be severe for whoever killed this individual. And I think this is what they're trying to do here. I think they're trying to push Trump into doing something against Saudi Arabia. Because what is Saudi Arabia? Wonderland, where Clinton and the rest based their operation with human trafficking, pedophilia, and everything else. We'll have to see how this all plays out. But we can see at this point, Trump is just sitting back. He's not falling for what they're putting out there. And before you know it, the whole plan is going to fail. And they're trying to stop this because they know the DECLAS is coming very, very soon. And they're using, what are they using? Ammunition. And you can see each time they think it's coming, it doesn't. And they use these stories up. And what happens is when they don't expect it, that's when it's going to come. We see out in Afghanistan, the Taliban now has confirmed that U.S. talks, the next U.S. talks, they're going to be discussing troop pullout. So we'll have to see how this all plays out, but we can see there is a huge push for peace. And like I said, the deep state for many, many years has been pushing war in all of these areas. And they were doing it for a purpose, for an agenda, to reach a goal, to control all of these areas, to make sure that they controlled the regimes and eventually get into war with Russia and China. And now it's not working. Russia is out there, and a Russian MP kind of slipped, or maybe he's making this up, we don't know. He alleges that Russia has the S-600, S-700 air defense system. Now, this individual, who is a 72-year-old legislator, was saying that the S-700 will block everyone at the launch points for good. And this will be the last blow of the Russian counter-air defense system, where planes will not even be able to take off. Now, if they do actually have this, this is a game changer. This means they can stop anything. We see out in Jordan and Syria, they officially reopened the border crossing. And this has been closed for over 3 years now, because this is where troops from the paid mercenaries were being pushed in through this area. Syria did not control it. Jordan was a part of it, part of the deep state. Now everything is reversing. So we are going to see peace in all of these different Middle Eastern countries. The petrodollar will no longer exist. The central bank are going to be torn down. But before all that happens, what has to happen? Well, we need the declassification. We need this to come out. We need the deep state on the run. We need the deep state being brought in to stand trial. Because once you start this process and you bring these individuals in, the others will either run, commit suicide, or try an event. And if they're losing power left and right and losing their security clearance, remember Brennan, Clinton has turned hers in, plus those other individuals, they don't have security clearance. And soon you're going to see a lot more. They're going to be losing their security clearance. And once all this begins, these people are going to be scrambling. And I don't know if they have enough power. They still might have a little bit because they still have factions in other countries to pull something off. But if this is declassified and it pulls in the UK and Australia, the people in those countries, well, this is not going to go over well. And we're going to see a worldwide revolt against the deep state, against the central bank, against the corruption. And people are going to want to know more. And I believe this is why they're trying to push this Saudi Arabia event right now, to get something going, to push a war, to have the distraction. They want Trump to do something. They want Turkey to do something. They want Saudi Arabia to do something. But I don't think it's going to work. I think they all understood, and I think they all understand what is happening here. I think they were fed intelligence beforehand to know what was happening. And there were reports out there saying that the U.S. did know, but I think this part of it was a setup to say Trump knew about this and he did nothing. No, I think they knew about it and they did do something. And it's not what everyone thinks. And now the deep state, they're trying to push their agenda, but it's going to fail. Fail big time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.